Hello, everyone. This is part 6 of Cressida Carroll's The Wizards of Once. There are whopping great signs up all over the fort. You can't have missed them. Your mother loathes magic. She hates the magic. She has sworn never to rest until she has rid the entire forest of anything magic at all. Wish furrowed her brow. Yes, I have to say I don't really understand that. Surely just because some magic is bad, it doesn't mean that all magic is bad. You're not supposed to understand, screeched Bodkin. You're a warrior. You're not supposed to be asking questions. It's very, very simple. You're just supposed to be obeying the warrior rules. Wish suddenly looked very dejected. The spoon, now standing on top of her head, drooped. Bother. You're right, said Wish sadly. I've messed up again, haven't I, Bodkin? You most certainly have, said Bodkin. And then he added hurriedly, Your Highness, for in the excitement of the situation he had forgotten the warrior rules about how to correctly address royalty. This was the problem with Wish. Whenever you spent any time with her, you found yourself breaking rules without even realizing it. If my mother ever finds out about this, she's going to be hopping mad, isn't she? Said Wish, even sadder still. Absolutely hopping, agreed Bodkin, giving a little shiver at the thought of it. I wish I was normal, like everyone else, said Wish. What can I do to put everything right again? Bodkin gave a sigh of relief, for it looked, at last, the princess was seeing sense. Okay, don't be sad. All is not lost, he said, giving Wish a little pat on the shoulder to cheer her up. You didn't mean to do the wrong thing, but you need to release this spoon into the wild right now, and take this sword back to the fort immediately. And you have to stop doing things like this and start behaving like a normal warrior princess. And, hang on, what was that? There was a sudden noise above them, like the snapping of a twig when something brushes up against it. They had been so busy arguing they had forgotten that they were not in the safety of the Iron Warrior fort, about to tuck into a splendid dinner. For warriors were very keen on their food. They were all alone in the Bardwoods after dark, and for the first time they realized they were being watched. I mentioned, did I not, at the beginning of this chapter, that something bad was watching them, quiet and dangerous, up in the treetops. A cold feeling came over the back of Wish's neck, where the hairs pricked up like the quills on a hedgehog. She looked all around, at the black, silent trees, their branches twisting, gnarled like the knobbliest of goblins' fingers. She looked up, and she could not see anything, only perhaps a certain darkening and a shimmering, thickening of the air above them, as if that air was choked with something awful, as indeed it was, and the coldness radiating out of the heart of that shining density was a coldness you have never felt before. Colder than the coldest depths of the northern ocean, colder than icicles, colder than polar caps, colder even than death itself. The freezing mist of the wild wood's ancient past crept under Wish's armour and sank like death into her bones. Was it Wish's imagination, or did the very air above them seem to be grinning? Wish put on her helmet. The spoon stood straight up on top of Wish's head and sniffed the air around them. Suddenly he went rigid, as if sensing something terrible, and dived down into Wish's armour to hide. Run, pony, run! Squealed Wish, and the exhausted little pony started violently and broke into a shambling, terrified, wobbling gallop. Anybody watching them would have thought they were mad, for it looked like they were running away from nothing at all. But there was definitely something very odd going on. Wish and Bodkin could see nothing above them except for a dark night sky, stars and trees, but something about the way the tree branches were moving suggested that an invisible presence was hurtling against them. And the air rushing above them was so cold that it burned the top of Wish's forehead, and as the pony galloped faster and faster, the wind blowing directly behind them began to make an odd noise, like no wind Wish had ever heard before. Now you see, Bodkin, aren't you glad I brought that sword with me? I thought we might need it, panted Wish, trying not to panic. Glad? Glad? We could be sitting right now in front of our dinner safely in the dining room in the warrior fort, and I think today it was going to be deer burgers, which is my favourite, and this pony is going in the wrong direction, flapped Bodkin. The fort is the other way. But whatever it was that was chasing them didn't want them to go back to the fort, so it was chasing them further and further and further into the bad woods. Does anyone know we're out here? Cried Bodkin, who had drawn his bow and was shooting desperate arrows up, though he was a terrible shot and he couldn't see what he was shooting at. Will they send out search parties? I'm afraid not, said Wish, squinting upwards, trying to work out what was pursuing them. Or not until morning, anyway. I told my mother I was going to bed early with a headache. Brilliant, said Bodkin. Brilliant. As it happens, I think I can feel a bit of a headache coming on myself. Don't worry, Princess. You mustn't worry. I'm here to protect you. Wish shook the spoon at whatever was following them. She may have been somewhat weird. She may have been a somewhat weird warrior princess, but she certainly had courage. You better not follow us, whatever you are, shouted Wish at the terrifying, screeching nothingness, for we are armed with an enchanted spoon. The sword, Princess, murmured Bodkin through white lips. The sword sounds more scary. And a sword, shouted Wish, waving the sword in her right hand and the spoon in her left. A sword so dangerous it was locked in my mother's dungeons. But that, if anything, seemed to encourage what was following them even more, for the wind above them gave a hungry whine and rushed after them even faster. Never fear, Princess, cried Bodkin, shaking so much with anxiety that he could barely load his bow. This is a bad situation, but I will save you, for, as a personal assistant bodyguard to the Princess, I have been trained in the most advanced arts of bodyguarding. Unfortunately, Bodkin discovered in these desperate moments that he had a terrible disadvantage as a potential bodyguard. He had a medical condition that caused him to fall asleep in situations of extreme danger. He had barely said the last words of that brave speech before he collapsed on the princess's shoulder, snoring loudly. Bodkin! Shrieked the princess. What are you doing? Bodkin! Shrieked Wish. Wake up now! Bodkin woke up with a start, mumbling, Where? What? How? Badwards, panted the princess. Being chased. Something terrible. Advanced arts of bodyguarding. Oh, yes. I've been carefully trained for exactly these sorts of life or death emergencies, cried Bodkin, fitting another arrow into his bow and unfortunately falling asleep again at the moment of aiming it, so that he tipped forward and accidentally shot the poor pony in the hind quarters. The pony squealed protestingly as the arrow grazed his bottom and then ran on in wild desperation through the pitch dark forest. Wish's heart was beating fast like a rabbit's, and she didn't even notice when the brambles shredded her clothes to ribbons and tore long, painful scratches into her legs. The pony came upon an ice-cold stream and forced his way through the briars and splashed down into it, though the cold of the water burned them like fire, in the hope that whatever was following them would be put off the scent. The pony clambered out the other side and ran on through the darkness. Oh, murmuring mistletoe, thought Wish in terror. I should never have done this. Magic is banned for a reason. Warriors are not allowed out after dark for a reason. Iron Warrior Fort is built like it is for a reason. She could feel her heart beating so hard it felt like any moment it would break out of her chest. Faster, faster, urged Wish, so choked with panic she could barely breathe. The pony galloped into a sudden clearing in the forest. The whining of this strange wind had an edge to it now, like the painful scritch of chalk on stone, a sound that grew louder as if building up to attack. Louder and louder the noise grew. Scritch! There was an extraordinary noise, as if the very air itself was being torn apart like a giant piece of paper. Terrified, Wish turned her face upward to confront the attack with a drawn sword. There was a shout from a human voice somewhere behind her, and suddenly everything happened very quickly. Right, I'll leave it there for today. I hope you enjoyed that part. I'll try and post another part as soon as I can. Take care. Bye bye.